Hello dear fellows, I'm Evil Punk and this is F1 2020 on the Xbox One X, and what I've decided to do is demonstrate and explain how I get around Spa, and I'm doing this in time trial and I'm using the Ferrari F2004, famously driven by Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. And the year that this car was driven, it won 15 of the 18 races that season. 13 victories to Michael Schumacher and 2 to Rubens Barrichello. And I know a lot of people that are looking for help with this track are probably going to be using 2020 cars, but that's fine because the references and breaking points and everything I'll be sharing in this video will translate over nicely. There's not much difference, if any at all, at least none that I've noticed. So to start with Spa, it's important that you get the exit of the chicane right, because that's going to set you up for La Source. And well, it'll set you up for your entire lap basically. Anytime you're finishing a lap, it's always important to get the very last turn right, and in this case it'll be the last 2 turns since it's the chicane. So if you're coming through the chicane properly, you should end up on the right hand side of the track naturally if you're coming through at the proper speed. And immediately what I do is I aim for the 100 meter marker on the left hand side. So naturally I'm coming out on the right hand side just because of the racing line. And then I'm immediately aiming myself at the 100 meter marker on the left hand side of the track, which is my reference for La Source. So that 100 meter marker, that's my breaking point for La Source. 100 meter marker, nail the brake, turn in, aim for the inside apex, and naturally again you'll finish on the outside. So one more time, 100 meter marker, that's my breaking point. Aim for the inside apex of La Source. I did have to adjust a little bit, but I still made it through nicely. Naturally I'm going to finish on the outside, and then from La Source all the way to the end of the camel straight, it's flat out. Just pin the throttle all the way down, and then so Eau Rouge. Okay. For qualifying and fresh tires, this is always going to be flat out, but through the duration of a race you may start having to lift and feather through Eau Rouge slightly as your tires wear. But for qualifying and fresh tires, Eau Rouge will always be flat out. So the way to handle Eau Rouge, you can aim for this inside apex. This apex here on the left is the inside to the entrance of Eau Rouge. So you're going to hit that first apex on the inside. And before you even get to that first apex, you're aiming for the apex of the exit of Eau Rouge, which is this apex right here that I'm currently on. So that's the apex for the exit of Eau Rouge. So immediately you're kind of just aiming for that right off the bat. And then you're going to aim for the apex to Raidillon, which is right here on the left hand side, which is where my wheels are now. So hit the inside apex to the beginning of Eau Rouge, hit the inside apex to the exit of Eau Rouge. And about halfway through this turn is about when I straighten out my wheels, and that'll line me up for the curb on the inside of Raidillon. So you see I've straightened it out before the turn's even finished. So I'm already aiming for the curb on the inside of Raidillon. And this is all flat out all the way from La Source to the end of the camel straight. And then naturally you'll finish on the right hand side by that curb. So what that looks like: up to speed, aiming for the inside of the entrance to Eau Rouge, and inside to the exit of Eau Rouge, inside at the at Raidillon, and then flat out all the way to the end of the camel straight. And my reference is about roughly 70 to 60 meters, which is just a little more than halfway between the 100 meter marker and the 50 meter marker. So about roughly 60 meters, brake and turn in. So now let me explain that a little bit. So at about 60 meters I'm braking, and then it's going to take a little bit of practice to learn and figure out when to turn in. But once I've braked and bled enough of my speed off, I'm turning in at full lock and aiming for the inside curb of Lake Home, of the entrance to Lake Home. So I'm hitting the inside curb of Lake Home on the entrance, and the outside curb of Lake Home on the, the inside let me try that one more time. Hitting the inside curb to the entrance of Lake Home, and then hitting the inside again to the exit of Lake Home. So this is the inside once again. So the inside goes from the right hand side to the left hand side. So hitting the inside to the entrance of Lake Home, and then hitting the inside to the exit of Lake Home. And then I'm staying to the left hand side, lining myself up to hit the apex of Melmedy, hitting the inside, and then naturally finishing on the outside curb. So this little bit looks like up to speed. You don't necessarily have to go all the way over to the left-hand curb to line yourself up for Melmedy. You could possibly lose a tenth or two if you spend too much effort trying to get all the way over to the left, because anytime you take a corner too wide, you're losing those precious tenths. So you don't have to necessarily be all the way against the curb, but you still want to make this turn as wide as you can without losing too much speed or time. So a lot of this section is coasting and feathering. So I'm on the throttle about until I reach the curb on the left hand side, and then I'm coasting through Melmedy, and once the car is straightened out, I'm back on the throttle down to Bruxelles, and my braking point is the beginning of this curb here on the left hand side. Once my front wheels reach that curb, I'm hitting the brake and then turning in at full wheel lock, and that just means that I'm turning in as hard as I can without the car oversteering. If you're oversteering, then and when I say oversteer, I don't mean that your rear end is sliding around. I just mean that you're turning in much tighter than you're meaning to. So if you're oversteering at any corner, you're probably coming through too slow. And the reverse is true. If you're oversteering, you're probably coming through too fast. So front wheels reach the curb, brake, and then coast through Bruxelles on the inside curb. And if you come through at the proper pace, you will naturally exit Bruxelles on the outside curb. And then immediately, even though you're exiting Bruxelles, you're still turning to aim for this right-hand curb to set yourself up for turn 11. And then once I reach this curb, I let off the throttle and coast through turn 11 until the car is straightened back out. So once I feel the car come back under grip, I'm pinning the throttle all the way down to double gauche. And probably about a car length past this 50 meter marker, I let off the throttle and coast until I get to the left hand side of the track, which is the inside of the beginning of double gauche. So, and then once I get to the inside curb, I pin the throttle again, so coasting from 50 meter marker to the inside curb, then pinning the throttle all the way around flat out through the exit of double gauche. And then if you naturally, you should end up on the right hand curb here. and I'm immediately pointing my car at about between the 100 meter and the 50 meter marker. But you want to try to aim for that 50 meter marker, and you could use either the 50 meter marker or the curb as your braking point. I like to use the curb, so once my front wheels reach the curb, I start braking, and I'm hitting the inside curb of Fanier, and then again aiming for the inside curb to the exit of Fanier. And those two turns are kind of a mixed balance between coasting and feathering the throttle. So aiming for the inside curb on the entrance, and once again aiming for the inside curb on the exit. And naturally I should be exiting Fanier on the right hand curb, and then again setting myself up for the next turn, which is Campus. I'm immediately aiming my car at my braking point. So, once you make it through Fanier and you're on your way to Campus, I'm aiming the car at the curb on the left-hand side to give myself a wider turning radius. And again, the curb is my reference for my braking point as well. Once my front wheels reach that curb, I'm hitting the brake and coasting through Campus. And then from Campus all the way to the chicane is flat out. So, aiming for the curb, hitting the brake and coasting through Campus. Once the car is straight, or I feel the cars come back under grip and I can get back on the throttle, I start pinning the throttle, and I'm staying on the left-hand side of the track until I'm ready to turn in through turn 16. And ideally what you want to do is you're turning in at full lock and hitting that inside apex. I turned in a little bit late, but I still managed to make it through with the throttle pinned. I turned in a little bit late, so I ended up coming just a tiny bit wide, but I still made it through flat out. So turn 16 is flat out, and then again, you're flat out all the way through Blanchimont, all the way to the chicane. And basically through here, you're just straightening the curves. And by that I mean you're trying to keep as straight a line as you possibly can. So I'm aiming for the inside, and naturally I'll drift back to the outside. So the inside of this turn, naturally drifting back to the outside, and then I'll aim for the inside once again of Blanchimont, aiming for the inside of Blanchimont, and then naturally I'll come out on the outside, and then again staying along the inside. Naturally you're exiting on the outside, and this 100 meter marker is the reference that I use for the chicane. So all the way from the exit of Campus all the way to the chicane is flat out. 100 meter marker, brake and turn in. And just like I mentioned earlier, it's really important to get the exit to the final corner right. And you want to be careful about attacking these two curbs too much, because they are super easy to slide around on. And anytime you come out of a chicane, it's really easy, because first you're super torquey. It's really easy to accidentally give it a little bit too much throttle and get the rear wheel spinning, especially once your tires are a little bit worn down. So for the chicane, you're starting on the outside, aiming for the inside apex for the beginning of the chicane, and then again aiming for the inside apex for the exit of the chicane, and naturally you'll finish on the outside curb. And this is when I'll line myself up with that 100 meter marker I talked about at the beginning. And you just want to be careful about getting on the throttle too hard or too soon, because it is super easy, especially out of this final chicane on Spa, to lose the rear end and spin. And if you're attacking the curbs, it's also a recipe for spinning out. So I try not to hit the curbs too much on the chicane. Yeah, I did slide a little bit, but I'm fine. So that's how I get around Spa, and I hope that helps anybody that's needed help with Spa. I'm fairly new to racing in the F1 games. I primarily play single player races, so like I say, I'm fairly new and I'm still learning, but I'm happy to share what I've learned in my experience with F1 so far. And it's entirely possible that someone comes along this video and knows the track better than I do, and by all means, feel free to share your experience with the track and how you get around the track, and definitely let me know if this video has helped you at all. I'd love to know if it did. And let's see, is there anything else I want to say? I don't think so. If you're better than me, tell me how you do it, and if this helps, definitely let me know. I hope this video has helped. I hope you've liked the video. I'm hoping I can get more F1 videos out. Yeah, but I do have a actual job that I have to get to, so I don't necessarily have a lot of time to put out many videos, especially considering that I don't even have too much time to even just play video games. But yeah, feel free to leave a like if this video's helped, or if you thought the information was useful. And if you're interested in more F1 videos, feel free to subscribe, and I would definitely appreciate that very much. But that's all, folks. I'll see you next time. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope this helped.